Hi, everybody. We wanted to get some plugs and administrative stuff out of the way at the top of the episode this time. First of all, we wanted to thank you for listening. If you're enjoying what we're doing, the best way to pay that back to us is by sharing this episode or any of our episodes with a friend. Word of mouth is still the best way to promote indie podcasts, and we certainly appreciate it. Some other ways that you can show appreciation would be to give us a rating or a review. The place that we're most likely to see those would be Apple Podcasts and Podcast Addict. However, Spotify also supports ratings as well. If you'd like to get into contact with us, you can do so on the social medias. We've got an Instagram account at pixelprojectradio podcast. We've got a Twitter at pixelprojectpod. And we have a Discord. That link will be in the episode description and also in our Instagram bio. You can also send us a good old-fashioned email at pixelprojectradio@gmail.com. Now, let's do our best to survive until dawn. My name is Rick Firestone.
My name is Ben Bugale.
And you're listening to Pixel Project Radio, a video game and video game discussions club-style podcast where we talk all about our favorite games. We play through them, we go through the story beats, we do some analyzing, and we talk about what worked and what didn't. And today, things are not as they seem. As me and Ben, two teens, or... well, we look like the two teens anyway, we could be as old as them, try to uncover the mysteries of the mountain and what lies within.
Yes, and I'm glad you said what worked and what didn't, because I feel like today's is a good one and an even better one to discuss.
Yeah, we are treading into the deep, dark north, going through the mysterious cabin, mines, and sanatorium found in Supermassive's Until Dawn.
This, for those of you keeping score at home, is one of the games that we had in the Scariest Game of All Time 2021 bracket challenge, and it went pretty far. Now, it was not one of the two winners. That's right, there were two winners. How? Long story. We'll get to that later. But it was one that a lot of people liked, and it was carried to one of the final rounds, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so. It's been a minute since I've actually checked that out, but it definitely was on there, and I do remember at least one person reaching out to me saying, how did it not win? Oh, you know what I think it was? I think it was matched up against Resident Evil Village, and I think it lost to that.
And that's understandable. I mean, Village is, a very modern titan in the game industry.
Plus, it's got Mommy Lady Mommy Vampire Lady.
That's right.
Yeah, oh yeah. When I see her, my tongue falls on the floor and my heart beats out of my chest, and I turn into a smokehouse going awooga.
Hamana, right?
Oh,
sorry.
We've got some listener responses, but before that, why don't we give our little responses? And I'm so excited to talk to you about this. I know I say this all the time, Ben. That's partly because I love you and I love doing this show, but it's also because we actually haven't talked about this one, and spoiler alert, it holds a little special place in my heart.
All be curious to hear more about that. Would you like to go first, Rick?
Sure. Sound like that guy on TikTok. Sure. All right, here's what I thought. Until Dawn lives its best life among the intersection of camp, convention, and modernity. Never taking itself too seriously, it's a delightful love letter to the B-horror slashers of the 80s and 90s with some really well-done red herrings and a likable cast of cliché teens. This is an 8 out of 10 for me. I love this game so much.
I'll be very curious to hear what you love about it, because my rating for this is probably about as high as I could go for it. I'm not saying it's bad. but I had some. I'll just read my review. Gosh, I'll just stop. Those were all beautiful words, by the way. Until Dawn is a beautifully packaged game that sincerely engages one's sense of consequence. Betwixt many horror movie cliches, some intriguing locations, hot and cold acting, and other details, this game hits when it hits and misses when it misses. This is a 7 out of 10 for me. I think that's as high as I can go.
That's more than fair. I don't think you're off base with any of that. I'm glad that you touched on the locations, because I think that's one of the strongest aspects of this game. And the acting, too. You hit the nail on the head. It's really up and down. We're going to talk about some of the performances, but if you don't mind, I'm going to read through some of the responses we got.
Sure.
We only got 3. Normally, we would go back and forth, but what happened, as Ben said, we were going to do this last month, and I put a call for responses then, and what I found out is Instagram doesn't let you scroll back that far, looking at your likes and notifications, so I lost them all, so I had to put a last-minute call up today. So I'm going to read them. We only got a couple. Dustin Miller on Instagram, he said, "It's so good." Dustin and I actually played a ton of this game when it first came out. He and I went through a lot of it. List Off Podcast, I'm assuming this is Ryan, as he runs the socials. He said, "I was surprised by Until Dawn. It ended up being a lot of fun, and I really liked the mystery and lore."
Yeah, okay. All right. I don't disrespect that.
Here we've got one from Dave Jackson from Tales from the Backlog. He said, "I loved it. I really enjoyed the campy slasher film tropes, and it really broke me of my desire to always make the optimal choice. Life is Strange brought this out of me, and to just go with the flow." Yeah, totally agree. Failing forward is a big part in this game.
It is, and that's why I mentioned consequence, because, it plays like real life in a lot of ways, and failing forward is just something you have to do.
We also previously, I believe Keith from the Main Quest podcast responded whenever I asked about a month and a half ago. I think he said he wasn't too fond of it. So Keith, I didn't forget you. Just a little last minute scrambling on our part, you know?
We didn't forget you, but Instagram decided to, those bastards.
Yeah, take it up with Meta and Zuck.
Can Zuck an egg. Hey.
Yeah, take that. Go smoke some of those eggs. So you put forward some very valid criticism. So let's talk a little bit about what worked and what didn't for us just up front.
Can I start just off the bat by saying this does not feel like a game that is meant to be played by anyone?
How do you mean?
To me, it felt like it was very, and I know that it's like you'd said some like 80s B horror, which like I love that descriptor. However, I don't think I could play this game. There was just some commentary, and there were some things that really kind of got itchy, and like I understand, but it was also like, you know, a mid-20-teens game. So like the fact that like there's I'm dancing around the fact that I don't feel like I would enjoy the portrayals of women as a woman if I were a woman playing this game.
Yeah, I think there are valid criticisms up that route. Do you have, what was it for you? Was it specifically assigned to one character, or was it just the women in the ensemble in general?
I mean, it was the way that the women were, it was their lines. It was, it's not like I had like a fundamental issue with, the characters. I don't want to name everyone right now, but like the portrayals of women were all of the worst kind of stereotypes with the exception of one. And I know you know the one I'm already talking about, or at least I think you do. But there was just a lot of, I don't know. It felt like the individuals who had written, directed this, it just felt like they had some, and maybe they're just going for the 80s B horror thing, but I don't know. Just the whole like getting into like the snapping the training bra kind of stuff, and like everyone calling each other slutty, and then like it was a whole thing where I was like, oh, I see where we're going. That was my thing. What are your thoughts on all of this, Jazz?
Well, I'm not going to challenge you on that. I don't feel too strongly about that. I think they were going more for the 80s horror tropes, like the trope characters, the cliche characters, because they all are. Every single one in here, maybe with the exception of Sam is some kind of a trope. Sam is probably the most level. Sam is the only non-terrible character. Like, they're all, I'm trying to imagine being friends with them. They'd be awful.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. I know more women like Sam than I know like any of the other ones. And, if that was my representation compared to Chris and Mike and a lot of those other people, I can't say I'd be terribly happy with that. Also, and this might make me sound like one of them left-leaning socialist people, but I also like to see some diversity. You know what I mean? Like a little, like, and I'm not saying that there wasn't not diversity. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm not going to challenge you on any of those. Those criticisms don't necessarily resonate with me, but I would never turn somebody down for having those because it's not my place to say.
What are your criticisms, though?
In terms of the characters, while we're on the subject, I mean, the one that is codified to be quote unquote the bitch, capital T, capital B, and even the actress in interviews said this is clearly Emily, right? Emily is,
yeah.
I mean, she's almost written explicitly to be as horrible as possible, and for the player to not like her. And Emily also happens to be a woman and the only Asian character, so. Again, that's the fact that she was codified to be capital T, capital B, the bitch, is criticisms towards that are valid, and it's not either of our place to strike them down or challenge them. But I could see that as being a bit problematic, maybe.
Yeah, and the thing was for me is that I looked at her and I said, "Oh, is she supposed to be Asian too?" That's what I mean whenever I talk about diversity, because like there were some moments where I was like, "Okay, she looks like she could be," and maybe it's the setting, maybe it's the lighting in the game, because it's a very, very dark game. Everybody, in case you haven't picked up by the fact that we're talking about like horror, but it can be hard to distinguish certain things. But I digress.
Let's go right off of that. But before we do, let's just say right up front what this game is. So,
yes.
Until Dawn follows a group of high school friends coming up to a sort of vacation cabin in the woods in Canada. I don't remember exactly which province, but it's somewhere in Canada. And they're all going up a year after a tragic accident occurred that left two of their friends, two twin sisters, Hannah and Beth, missing. And they're going back up to sort of party and have a good time and bond over that traumatic experience while also trying to move past it. I think that's kind of the gist of it. And then, of course, mystery and terror ensues, and saying any more would be a spoiler.
Which we'll get to that part too, the spoiling, but no, that's exactly it. And so, yeah. Did you mention the three quote main locations?
In my 3-sentence review. No, not in my 3-sentence review. I did kind of offhandedly. There's a couple of different locations. The main ones are the cabin. It's a lodge is how it's referred to. A sanatorium that's sort of up on the mountain, and then also mines. There's a mine where miners worked.
And betwixt a lot of these locations, you will, be outside running through nature, which I don't know if I'd really call that a level as much as I'd call it like a digital hallway. You know what I mean? Yeah, for sure.
If it's okay, I want to put a pin in the level design because I want to go back to a comment you made about Emily, saying that she maybe looked like an attempt at an Asian character, or maybe something of that nature, Uncanny Valley, however you'd like to call it. This was actually done via mocap, so all of these actors played these characters. So just to run down them real quick, okay. We've got Josh, played by Rami Malek, Chris, played by Noah Fleiss, Ashley, played by Galadriel Steinman, Sam, played by Hayden Panettiere, Mike, Brett Dalton, Matt, played by Jordan Fisher, Jessica, played by Megan Martin, Emily, played by Nicole Bloom, and Hannah and Beth together, since they're twins, played by Ella Lentini. And each of these characters are they basically look exactly like their character in game. So Nicole Bloom is an Asian woman. So I think I see what you're saying. I think what you might be seeing, and I don't mean to put opinions into your mouth, but I think what you might be seeing is just the limitations of the PS4's hardware and the sort of uncanny valley that comes with motion capture for the PS4 at the time.
Yeah, no, you could be right about that. I'm looking at pictures of her, and to be honest, I do see some differences in her actual human face versus the digital face, and maybe that's why she looks different to me. I don't know, because that goes for a few of them, right? But Rami Malek is like, he's such a striking face. It's kind of hard to get his wrong.
Yeah. Rami Malek is the one that you look at in this game and you say, "Oh, that's Rami Malek." Like there's really,
that's exactly.
I mean, they all look like their characters, but Rami Malek, like, he is in the game. The other one, Galadriel Steinman, very much looks exactly like Ash. Brett Dalton looks exactly like Mike. They did a fairly good job. And it's also worth mentioning that all of these actors have gone on and previously were doing other things too. Obviously, most notably is Rami Malek and Hayden Panettiere, who, by the way, I just put these two pieces together today. She voices Kairi in Kingdom Hearts, which is our next episode.
How about that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And obviously she's done other things, but they've all been active. So let's talk about that acting real quick, because we left off one other big one. Dr. Hill, a therapist played by Peter Stormare, not from Tim and Eric fame, but he was active in a few Tim and Eric things. So let's talk about this acting. How you mentioned the acting as feeling hit or miss to you. Could you elaborate on that?
Hot and cold, yes, hot and cold. There were some people who I thought did a consistently good job. There were some that it just felt forced and messy. Then there were some people who just, and I know I've kind of already said this, but like, you know, you literally just mentioned Dr. Alan Hill, Peter Stormare. He was incredible for me throughout the entire game.
He's such a bizarre character. Like, what is that accent?
That's like a little bit of Mississippi and a little bit of Louisiana, but really more than anything, it sounds like Savannah Light to me.
So sort of back here in
just a little bit, but not quite. I sit on you. You know what I mean?
Not quite a murder, you say.
Yeah, no. That's we're not in the bayou.
He also like lisps some of his words and like just pushes through lines in a way that, like, there were some times where I was like, is he intoxicated? But I mean, he's not. And there's kind of a reason for his what would you call that, unhinged performance at times. He's not a very good therapist.
No, but I mean, that's you know, there were parts of me that were even wondering if he was real at different points in the game, but that's a whole nother thing.
Wink, wink.
He just kind of, he was in a place that was, I don't know, it felt like he was really inhabiting the character. Some of the other acting that kind of I thought was better, A tier perhaps, maybe B tier, is Rami Malek did a great job.
Oh,
I don't know what your thoughts were.
I don't want to spoil too much right away, but there's a point in the game where his character kind of is shown in a different light, and at that point, I was just like jaw open sometimes. I was like, holy shit, like, he's doing a great job.
Yeah, he was of the better. But then there were some moments with Emily, and maybe this is just them trying to pair the voices with the actual like face mapping acting. Maybe that's the issue. I'm not trying to criticize any of these professionals, but you know, I look at these sorts of things and I go, something just didn't line up. Like Jordan Fisher, who played Matt, thought he did a great job. Ashley and Emily, not so sure. I was kind of impressed with Mike. Mike grew on me a lot.
Yeah, Mike, I would say if any character has character growth, it's Mike. I mean,
Agreed.
Josh has character growth, but it's not in the traditional way we might think. But Mike has legitimate ones, and Brett Dalton is actually the only cast member to be nominated for an award for his performance.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Though I'm curious about two others that I liked a lot.
Who were they?
Peter Stormare and Rami Malek. I thought that they were exceptional.
I mean, I agree with you, but I didn't see anything about them being nominated. I'm not really sure why, but I'm right there with you. I think Josh was probably the best performance in the game. Stormare was just so unhinged, and I think the thing with Stormare is we just didn't get enough of him.
No, we did not.
Just one quick note, I suppose, before we transition away from the acting. This game has a lot of bonus content related to the production of the game and how it was made. And you can see all of that by unlocking it as you progress through the story. So after you're finished, you'll be able to go in and view bonus videos like meeting the cast, seeing how they did the mocap acting, an interview with the composer, which we'll probably talk about here in a moment, and just everything. So it's very cool. I universally love when games do this. It very rarely is a detractor for me, even on games that I don't like. I think it's great.
Yeah. We have quite a few avenues to go down. So where do you want to start, Rick?
I suppose one related to the characters is just the visuals in general, and then we can circle back to those locations that we talked about, because I think we both agree that they're a very strong part of the game.
They are. Yes, I agree.
So how did you feel about the visuals just in general?
PlayStation in general, to me, usually for its time, has the best graphics. Just full stop there. It kind of reminded me of Resident Evil at some points because they made it really cinematic, like different angles that they do the camera at, which I know is not necessarily a visual, but I guess it's a component. This was a very easy game to look at. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree with you 100%. I think cinematic is the exact right word. The camera work that they do is the camera is generally static. Well, that's not true. It's a mixture of static and dynamic, meaning sometimes it will follow you if you're walking down a path, but other times as you walk into a room, the camera will be in the corner, and then as you approach the corner, the perspective will shift and the camera will be literally on the floor looking up toward you. And that is it's so well done for a horror game. I think that is a huge strength to the visuals of this game.
Hear, hear.
We kind of talked about the mocap. It can kind of get into Uncanny Valley, but that's PS4 of 2015, 2016. It's just how it is. Let's talk about those locations. So which one did you like the best?
Sanatorium, hands down.
Yeah, it's not even really close. The sanatorium is so well designed. It's so creepy. A lot of gray, white, and brown color palettes. It just looks so good.
Oh, and it feels like it was abandoned when it was, and that it was built when it was. Like I was looking at the architecture and looking at each brick in place, and I was like, wow, there's a lot of attention to detail going on here.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one thing that I like about that specific to the locations is that it tells a story through the level design, right? So it's difficult to talk about this without spoiling things, and I don't want to do that right up front because of the nature of this game, but there is lore, as one of our listener responses sort of alluded to, buried all throughout this game that you learn about both directly and indirectly, and the environment is a great storyteller in that aspect. It's very well done. It can be a little tedious sometimes because of the way the game controls looking for some of these totems, and we'll talk about the collectibles in a bit, but it can be a little tedious. I don't know if you found that, but overall the experience was very positive.
You see, I was getting the sense that you could extract as much as you wanted from the environment, and yes, while tedious, I would say that it really is kind of a Burger King kind of thing. You can have it your way if you want to explore all of the minutia you can, but if you want to just big picture bowl through it, you'll still get a sense of the atmosphere without, like in the sanatorium, for example, if I might say something. There is, in fact, a file that, if I'm not mistaken, had Alan Hill's name on it. If I'm not mistaken. Now, if you're just like looking at the files and like putting them down, it doesn't matter. But like someone in the game, someone making this game said, no, we're going to have him work at the sanatorium. Like it was kind of cool, I thought.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's all intentional. If you're a really astute explorer, you can find there are a couple of big twists in this game. There are a couple of red herrings before the actual issue is revealed. If you're astute, you could figure all of this out before it's revealed to you just through the clues that you find. And let's talk about them. We're right there, so why not? There are a slew of collectibles. I think if we're going to give this game a subcategory, you could call it a collectathon because of how many there are, even though they're not quote unquote required. Help me remember some of them, Ben. What are some of these collectible categories?
You've got your clues, right? We can start with clues for sure, which are everything. You know what I mean? Like you find pictures, you find, you go up to something and interact with it, and it's like a clue found. And you don't necessarily find the clue unless you observe it entirely. That's another thing that's interesting.
Yes, and specifically the clues come into categories. You've got clues related to the twins, the disappearance of Beth and Hannah, clues related to this mystery man who is sort of the first big bad that you encounter, clues related to 1952, I think, or some year.
Yep.
And is the other subsection related to the miners, or is that tied into 1952? I think it's tied in.
I thought it was tied in unless it's 1922 for the miners.
Yeah, I think that's it. But all in all of these clues sort of tie in and help you figure out what's going on. And they get updated as you find new information, which is super helpful. There is also the category of totems. How did you find what did you think about these totems?
I mean, I understand. I do. Part of me looks at them and goes, is there some loose level of appropriation at play here? That's always a thing for me, though. But what they do for the game, I liked a lot. I have no problem with the idea of having an item that, does what these totems do. Which if you, want me to kind of go into totem detail, I can, unless you would like to.
Fun fact that I learned from Stuff You Should Know. Did you know that the phrase that's commonly used, bottom of the totem pole, is technically incorrect? And in fact, the bottom of the totem pole was often reserved for folks that were highly regarded or had a lot of trading value. The people at the top of the totem pole, where nobody would look very easily, or nobody would see it naturally, that's where the people that got shafted go.
Yes, because the people at the bottom are seen as foundational.
That's maybe my favorite cocktail party fact, I think.
Mine is that the Eiffel Tower shrinks a millimeter every year because of gravity.
You really believe in the Eiffel Tower?
see, there it is. I'm so glad that is not a fact. Don't use that. It's a joke. Settle down, everyone. The totems that we have in this game, they relate to different characters and different events in the game, which is, kind of a main thing of the game that I'm sure we'll touch on soon, which is choices that you make. The totems, there are different types of totems, 5 variations in total: death, guidance, loss, danger, and fortune. And when you pick them up, you look at them and like, oh, this is a part of a totem pole. And when you turn it over, you get a glimpse into a scenario that has not necessarily yet happened.
Yes, and I loved that. It shows you,
Yes.
It's like 1 to 3 seconds long, and you can see something that might happen. For example, if it's the death totem, it might foreshadow a particular way you, the finder, could die. If it's the loss totem, it shows a way that a friend of yours might die. They're not all bad, though, because the guidance one and the fortune ones, they show you things that could help you. So I think that's really great. I really love that because it kind of kept you guessing. You can even find ones early in the game that show you the very final scene, And until you get there, you're like, you don't really know. Like, they're not spoilers, really. They're placed very well, which I appreciated.
I would agree. I thought they were placed extremely well, and you do have to look for them because you will miss them.
Yes. This is one of the very, very few games that I've platinumed. So I have found all of these before. This past playthrough, I found what came. I just, didn't worry about it. I definitely did miss some. And as a gameplay thing, it's not a big deal. The only other thing that it gives you, these totems, is it fills in this little 3-minute video called, what is it called? Events of the Past. Did you interact with this very much at all?
No, I did not.
Yeah, you really, you don't have to. It's tucked away. What it is each totem you find will fill in part of this video. If you try to watch it with no totems, it's just static. If you try to watch it with a couple totems, it'll be static part of the video, static part of the video. And once it's all filled in, it 100% tells you the events leading up to the night that Hannah and Beth disappeared. So it'll tell you the entire story. And what's great about this is each totem corresponds to a particular part in the story. So there's no way that you're going to get spoiled going into, as you find these totems. You're not going to figure out a key moment of the story. And in fact, some of them, as you're finding them and you have pieces missing, will kind of help reinforce the first major red herring that's going on. It makes you think that, oh, this is the bad guy, when in actuality, something else is coming. I love it. I think it's great.
No, I like them as, vehicles for the story. I do enjoy that.
Let's talk sound a little bit.
What in the name of God was the opening song?
I'm glad that you noticed that, man, because, it just does not fit at all. It's like this weird... Oh, how would you even describe it?
Oh, God, I really don't ever like to take digs at musicians of any degree. And this isn't really the musicians. Even the recording quality didn't feel that great of the actual song. And I don't know if they were trying to go for that kind of organic, raw sort of sound, but there's this weird opening theme that's minor, and I don't know if it's supposed to, evoke some sense of mystery, but it was extremely discounted Danny Elfman in a kind of strangely Evanescence package. I don't know.
I was thinking the exact same thing. It sounds like it would be in a gritty, dark, early 2000s movie with something like Evanescence. Or 9 Inch Nails.
If this would have come out in 2002, I would have been like, yeah, okay, this tracks. But it was 2015, and I was like, what the hell? You have other options. I don't know. No disrespect.
Other than that, I thought the sound design and the music was pretty good. The composer is Jason Graves. He is very quick to make the pun about having the last name Graves and being a horror music composer. Good. He has also done work on Tomb Raider, The Order 1886, Dead Space, and Far Cry Primal, to name a few, which is pretty good. Those are big games. He mentions in the video commentary, after you beat the game and when it unlocks, he mentions that they wanted the character, they wanted the music to be a character in the game, to, quote, stand out and be a character itself. I don't believe it accomplishes this, and I think that's good. What do you think?
Well, I mean, if it were to accomplish it, it might actually detract from the game more.
Precisely. Yeah.
It's supposed to be atmospheric. It's supposed to,
Yeah, as I thought about it, I thought, what does the music do the best in this game? And it's really effective at lifting everything else up around it. So it makes every situation a little more tense. It makes the chase scenes that much more anxiety-inducing. And I guess in that way you could think of it as a character, like a supporting character. But I think character in and of itself is a bit of a strong characterization for what it's doing. Basically, I agree with you, is what I'm saying.
No, I feel you. It's not, the game could be enjoyed even without it, because the sound effects, to kind of keep on the sound effects themselves really, I know I've already used the word organic once or twice, but it's very immersive and it feels very, I don't know. I thought the Foley department did a good job.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the sound effects are terrific. The orchestral hits when there are like jump scares, because there are jump scares, really good. Yeah, I think outside of Oh Death, it's a very appropriate and atmospheric game. I think it's terrific.
Oh Death was kind of like discount C tier, maybe even D tier. Irish Evanescence. Okay, I'm done. Even though it wasn't Irish, it still had that kind of like, yes, staring off at the Aran Islands in the early. No, just stop. Just stop where you are. This song, and I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it like a movie, right? They're trying to give like a Bond movie where the music's at the beginning, and there's different like scenes, and like, that's kind of how older movies would do things. They did a really good job visually with it, but oh death.
Yeah. Oh no. Am I right?
Hit.
Let's move this along. We've got a lot of story to get through. Development and reception. We mentioned it was filmed using mocap already. That's pretty cool. We'll talk about how it plays maybe just right at the front of the story. But one thing that I thought was really neat is when they were developing this, they would bring out chunks of it, like chapters, like a chapter at a time, to be played by playtesters in like a monitored area. So like a room where they were by themselves. The lights were low, and they had camera, microphone, and biometric equipment monitoring their like sweat levels, heart rate, things like that. And they tested like different scares in the game, and they said that if it wasn't consistently scaring other people, they would go back and rework it. And what I like about that is they said like, we took everybody's opinion, but we weren't really interested in that. We were interested in the actual data. So if somebody said, yeah, it wasn't that scary, but their heart rate was going way up, they were like, yeah, this is good. That's pretty cool. That's attention to detail.
I didn't actually know that, so that's pretty cool. I do appreciate that.
Yeah, and like I'll be the first to say, like, if you asked me, I would be like, it's a scary game, but I wasn't scared. But there were definitely times when like it was anxiety inducing and like it was creepy. For sure. I think they did a great job.
Yeah, I without going into the story too much, there were some moments where it was like, okay, of course this is going to happen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was a little too ready for some things, and for me personally, the more metaphysical, paranormal kind of things are, like, the more I can believe in its existence, the more scared I am. So there was a point where I just went, okay, and just kind of felt, I don't want to say felt less, but I recognize how certain unnamed things scare people. And good jump scares.
You should call those out as we get to them, because I'm not quite sure I know what you mean. One other thing that I thought was interesting, I don't know if you looked into this, but originally this game, when it was it started development in 2010, and originally it was for the PS3. It was aimed at younger audiences. It was first person, and it was a required, what's the word? You had to use the Move controller, the PlayStation Move, which looked sort of like a microphone, and it was like a precursor to VR. I don't know about you, but I think that would have been much less cool.
I think it definitely would have been. I will say, though, it did feel like it was for a slightly younger audience. Like, and that's not me sitting here being, quote, in the 30s going like, this game. But like some of the stuff, some of the language was like, it's just, I don't know. It felt like it was for a slightly different era. I don't know.
I think that goes back to the whole paying homage to the Friday the 13th, where all the teens were there, and the teens were talking about sex, and they were going to go and be alone in the car or in the cabin or things like that. I don't know. I know what you mean, though. I think from what I was reading, it was intended to be even younger than that, though. So I'm glad, the biggest criticism they received when they unveiled it was the Move controller, and that kind of had them rethink everything, which I think is good because, I think this works way better. I don't know. They did come out with a little sequel, a VR sequel. It's sort of like a rail shooter. I've never played it, but you've got a VR thing.
I guess I'll have to give it a try.
We should also say that on June 10th, just under a month from when this episode's going to release, the spiritual successor from Supermassive to this game called The Quarry is being released. I'm very excited. I was looking through the cast. They've got some more heavy hitters. David Arquette is going to be in the cast for that one. Brenda Song from, she's from more than just this, but Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. She played London Tipton. She's going to be in it. Sam Raimi's brother, whose name I can never actually remember, is going to be in it.
When you say Sam Raimi, you're not talking about the operatic baritone.
I'm talking about Sam Raimi of Spider-Man 3 fame.
Different Sam Raimi.
No, Pizza Time Sam Raimi.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the one responsible for the Tobey Maguire finger guns, the cinematic masterpiece of Spider-Man 3.
Bully Maguire.
Bully Maguire. I love it so much. But yeah, I'm very stoked for that game. That's going to be a day one purchase for me, partly because I have one game on PS5 currently, and I'm not super into it. It's Horizon Forbidden West. Very pretty. Don't love it. Regret spending $70 on that. But anyways, we could talk about that another time. We're just about done before we get into the story / how the game plays. Do you have any parting thoughts as we move on?
The game was directed by Will Biles and Nick Bowen. The designer was Tom Heaton. Those things.
Thank you. I did forget that. It's appropriate to mention that, considering it's kind of a movie. Will Biles sounds like a fake name to me. I read it and I think somebody is making fun of somebody named Bill Wiles.
See, Will Biles to me sounds... If he was William Biles, I'd be like, okay. But he's Will Biles. And I'm like, I don't think so, pal. That's Spoonerisms.
Do you know what else he's done? I can't recall anything.
I don't know, but I was trying to think up something fantastical, to be honest.
Perhaps dealing with beasts and maybe where to find them?
Nope, I don't know.
Yeah, but so we should say spoilers are coming. If you haven't played this game and you think you might like it, if you're a fan of 80s horror, if you're a fan of movie-style games, they're, sort of like the David Cage games, but better this time. If you're a fan of Rami Malek and Hayden Panettiere, and you just want to see teens go crazy, be bad friends to each other, and get into some dangerous hijinks, maybe play the game before listening, because we are going to spoil, schmoil away as we go.
And if it's a game, if you really enjoy games where you get to make a lot of decisions and you can't go back on them, this is a good game for that. So I would definitely advise you not listen until you finished playing the game. And one other thing, how the game was received generally by the public.
Yeah, thank you so much. I completely skipped over that part.
I'm going to just rattle off some numbers, some scores, okay? So you can kind of hear that Rick and I are kind of in the sweet spot, which isn't me patting us on the back, but it's gotten just about every kind of numerical value it can get. Metacritic gives it a 79 out of 100. Game Informer gives it a 9 out of 10. IGN gives it a 7.5 out of 10. Polygon a 6.5 out of 10. All over the place. But generally received well. This is not a failure by any measure. It is a game that functions well, and I think it accomplishes ultimately what it's trying to do.
Yes, sir. It was also nominated for several awards at the Golden Joysticks, the Game Awards, South by Southwest, and the British Academy Games Awards, among others. The only one that we're seeing that it won was the Best Original Property at the British Academy Games Awards. But, we may not have all the complete information. And just in case we didn't say this before, which I think we did, but we maybe didn't, this released in August of 2015, the very end of August 2015.
Shall we get down?
Let's take that cable car let's take it down to the mines, up to the mountain, and let's figure out if we can survive until dawn.
So I guess we should start in the year 2014, shouldn't we?
So real quick before the story starts, we're going to go over how it plays. It's third person. The controls can be a bit clunky because they are using motion capture and you are controlling a human, so they're doing normal human movements, so you're not going to be able to do quick pivots and anything like that. We already talked about the camera, but the main verbs of this game really lie in choices and consequences.
Mm-hmm. I liked the I don't know, I liked all the options for the controls. I know you say a bit clunky, but I don't know. I thought it was nice.
I just specifically meant moving. Sometimes, like when you're exploring, using the left stick to move and the right stick to point your flashlight to find clues, because as you alluded to before, Ben, if you don't find a clue like by walking up to it, you don't get that clue. So that was the only clunky thing to me.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair enough. You know, honestly, and just a quick kind of tangent on this, that's the only I mean, this game is very beautiful and it controls pretty smoothly, but like the only thing that ever suspended my like, you know, I kind of sat there and I was like, was like if you're like walking into a wall and like somebody like takes one of those like goofy, like too many steps kind of thing, like your avatar is like stuck somewhere and the legs are still going. Otherwise, this thing was like a master class in movement. Just saying.
I don't know if you had these bugs, but I had a bug with the lantern specifically, where sometimes if I turned the wrong way, the character's arm would just go Super Saiyan and just start flying all over the place, shooting the lantern everywhere. I got a lot of that. It was pretty funny. But the main verbs of this game lie in making choices and consequences. So occasionally characters will be talking and you'll be prompted to make a choice. Some of these are just flavor text and they don't actually do anything. Some of these have actual consequences, which you can see in this tab called the butterfly effect. That is a big part of how this game works.
I loved this part of the game, and I liked the fact that you didn't know which of your actions would contribute to the butterfly effect until it was too late. That, to me, is a really, really well-built system.
And I think the designers agreed with you because they implemented a system where the game is basically auto-saving almost all of the time. Certainly, like when you go from one room to another, autosave. If you make a decision, autosave. And they wanted to discourage this notion of save scumming and encourage failing forward or just accepting your the consequences of your actions. And I love that. It's not fun for me to min-max these kinds of games. Like when I did the platinum trophy for this and got all of the endings and everything, it wasn't as fun as the first playthrough because like I had to min-max everything and I had to make the right choices, quote unquote. And it's like, I don't know if that's how I like to play these games, but yeah, it's implemented in that way. So if you make a choice that you're sad about, tough luck. You gotta beat the game to rectify it or start over, I guess.
Yeah.
And just one more note about the butterfly effect. It keeps track of all of your decisions, so you can go back at any time and view them. For example, if you hit a squirrel with a snowball, that might be a butterfly effect, and then later on, something else happens because of that, and then you'll get to see those represented in a little handy chart. It's not a flow chart, so it doesn't show you like how many outcomes you missed, but it does show you what you got, so kind of cool. All right, we talked through the controls. Now let's go, as you said, Ben, back to 2014. Do you want to set the scene?
I would love to set the scene. So the game starts, not unlike a horror movie. We are at this snowy mountaintop lodge cabin sort of setting, and we see an individual with a blade in their hand. We don't see anything but like the blade. And I'm going to try to not give every single solitary detail, because there are a lot of details in this game that are best enjoyed through actually playing the game. But inside of this cabin, inside of this lodge, there's a group of teens, and they're being teens. And Rick, I'm going to be honest. I'm reading here in your notes for a moment that it says that they all look at least like they're 25. Yeah, they do. They do not look like they are teens.
It's the classic teen movie thing. They're 17 going on 26.
It looks like they could be literally anywhere between the ages, depending on who you're looking at. It looks like they could be anywhere between the ages of like 17 and 25, like actually, and even in some cases a little bit older.
Like Mike straight up looks like he could be in our friend group.
Yeah, oh, he absolutely does, at least age-wise. I'm like, look at him, I'm like, you're 31. Like, okay. No, but there are these teens inside, and there's this prank that they are planning on playing on one of the girls. Her name is Hannah. They're all kind of talking about how she has this crush on Mike, and they're gonna prank her. They're gonna get her real good by Mike's gonna lure her into a room, and it's she thinks that she's going to get to kiss this person that she likes, but everyone's in the room ready to kind of film her and pounce and spook her for, I don't know,
for having human feelings.
Yeah, and that's kind of low.
They're
Not
so
even kinda
horrible.
low.
Like these
It's
people
actually
are
horrible.
horrible. These are horrible people. Like they're the worst friends. They're pranking each other like maliciously throughout this entire game, even when like there something is wrong at this cabin, and they're still like pranking each other just to get a gag in. It's it's bizarre. These kids suck. Like they're good written characters for this kind of a game, but man, I would not want to be friends with any of them except for Jess in real life. Or excuse me, not Jess. Sam.
Agreed. And Sam, if I'm not mistaken, is the one who tries to stop the prank from happening at all.
I believe that's right. It's been a minute. You take control as Beth. Some of the other kids are passed out, drunk, like Josh and Chris. You find the fake letter from Mike to Hannah. Hannah has a crush on Mike. And you're like, well, this sucks. This is what introduces the examine mechanic that lets you examine clues and stuff like that. So you go upstairs right as the prank is ensuing. Hannah is sort of taking her shirt off to make out with Mike, who in the moment is like, oh, maybe this isn't so bad. I think he says something like, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Something very, very douchey, like, yeah.
So I think you're right. I think it's Beth, or no, it's not Beth, excuse me. It's I think Jess comes in and says, like, what's going on? Hannah sees everybody come out. They're like filming her, and she's understandably upset. She runs outside. And Hannah, the other sister, or excuse me, I'm going to get that mixed up so much. Beth comes out and says, like, what did you do to my sister? Where's she going? And she runs off after her. I think Sam is also super pissed and runs off too.
Yeah, no, that sounds correct. To be honest, I forgot that the guys were drunk at the beginning of the game entirely. I was like, yeah, where was Josh? And I was like, oh, wait a second.
Yeah, and I think they stand up right afterwards when they go outside to like look, and they're perfectly fine. It's like, what is going on?
Classic. At this point, Hannah has run out into the snow. She literally has run away. And you sit there and go, well, that's pretty dramatic. And then as you said, Rick, it really is like, wow, no, that was actually 110% shitty of them. Beth goes after her. And of course, we, being, omnipresent, omniscient, etc., just kind of watching, we're aware that there's a man outside with a machete. So you can kind of put two and two together to see at least what could happen.
Oh, yeah. As you're searching for Hannah, you find the first totem as Beth. This is sort of your introduction to totems. It also gives you a choice to go the safe path versus the fast path. This is going to be throughout the entire game in different areas. Essentially, the only difference is the fast path is going to give you more QTEs and quicker QTEs. So you'll have to press more buttons a little quicker, lest you fall and screw up. So you do catch up to Hannah, but you see something in the woods. It doesn't really, you don't really know what, but it cuts to vision, the POV of the thing watching you, and it's heat vision. So you and Hannah, you're running, and eventually you get cornered, and you slip off of the face of this cliff. And the thing that's in the woods with you, this humanoid shape, comes up and reaches down to try to help you. Because Hannah and Beth are hanging on to the ledge. Hannah, one of them is hanging on to the other, and that one is hanging on to the ledge. Superhuman strength. You get another choice at this point, which is either to just let go or let Hannah go. But either way, no matter what you do, you both fall. You hear a spine crack, and it kind of gives you a close-up on their faces as they're both presumably dead. And that's kind of the end to the tutorial before we cut to our first session with Dr. A.J. Hill.
I really like this. So now it's actually like, kind of first person-ish. You're in his office. It becomes pretty apparent that he is like a psychiatrist of sorts. This, to me, I'm going to be honest, at first I was like, okay, I don't know how I feel about these QTEs. But then it got to like this scene and I was like, oh yeah, I see where we're going now with like choices and all that stuff. We talk with him. He talks about how the past is something that cannot be changed no matter what. And the creators made sure we felt that way by all of those autosaves. He goes into these questions about the things that scare us in the world and how things make us feel. And there are photos that we look at. Favorite character in the game for me, Rick. Honest to goodness, I loved Alan Hill.
He's really something else, and as we both said already, A+ performance. It's unclear at the moment whether he's talking directly to the player or to someone else. That becomes clear soon, but I always assumed at first that he's talking to us. So
yeah, no, it's like, is he breaking the fourth wall or not? It was fascinating.
And he'll ask throughout, because this isn't, spoiler alert, this isn't the last session we have with him. He asks throughout, like, what scares us the most and things like that. This is all flavor for the jump scares in the game and, like, the imagery. So if you say you're afraid of scarecrows versus zombies, yeah, you might get, like, a pop-up of a scarecrow. Or if you don't like needles, I don't know, versus snakes, you might get those. And that's 100% what I got, because needles are one of my biggest fears.
Yep, 100%.
So it cuts to a year later, and Sam is riding a bus and listening to either a podcast or a radio program or something, giving info on what happened a year previous. It really feels like it's there to kind of cater to the player and not like something that diegetically would be happening just based on how they're talking, but, video game things. She also watches a video from Josh, which I'm curious what you thought about it. After the video, we get credits, but it's a video from Josh, who, by the way, is Hannah and Beth's brother. This wasn't super clear before, but it's made clear now. He's welcoming everybody back to the lodge for a party. He gets sincere for just a moment, talking about, everything that's happened and this trauma that we all mutually endured, and, we're going to get through it. And then ends with, and I'm quoting here, "Let's forget about all that and let's party like we're fucking porn stars."
Yeah, that's where I was like, oh, okay.
God bless Rami Malek for delivering that line.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a low point for me for him in this game, but a lot of the other stuff was really quite good.
Yeah, that line sucks so much.
So, Rick, your first chapter was called Friendship.
Yes. Was that not your first chapter?
Memento Mori.
Oh, did I may have written it down incorrectly. The important thing is that there's 10 chapters, and each chapter is going to give you a countdown until dawn. How many hours that is until dawn.
And the Until Dawn fandom wiki page does in fact have both Friendship and Memento Mori labeled as chapter titles for chapter 1.
Hey, we're all right. It's the best kind of right.
It is. So we start with we're in control of Sam, and with each character that comes up, there are different words that describe them that float around their head. You kind of get like a little freeze frame of their face. This happens for everyone that you encounter. And it's worth mentioning that we get to control pretty much everyone in this game at some point. That's an important thing to mention.
Yeah, I think we do get to control everybody. Maybe not Hannah. I can't quite remember if we get Hannah or not.
I don't think so, no.
But all of the other teens, we get to, whether they're pranking or just looking around, we get to control them. Here, Ben, as you said, we're controlling Sam. Immediately, we see a machete man behind her, but of course she doesn't see that. The gate's busted, so we've got to climb over. And this is also where we're introduced to another verb of the game that I forgot to mention, motion controls, which, and this is a first for me, so hold on to your butts, everybody. Motion controls in this game, great. Loved it.
Agreed.
What happens is you get a silhouette of the PS4's little controller light up area, and you get an outline around it, and it'll say don't move. And if you move the controller, you fail the event. If you don't move the controller, you succeed. And it's worth mentioning all the while, there's like a heartbeat and a ticking timer that you can hear coming out of the controller, not out of the TV. Really love that.
The Wii did that with Skyward Sword, and I liked it a lot. But yeah, no, this is cool.
This is just the tutorial, so it only serves to feed a squirrel. Turns out nature plays a big part in this game, interestingly enough. We see some signage talking about the indigenous people and their butterfly prophecies. This is essentially just cluing us into how the totem system works. We don't really get any other indigenous connections until the end of the story, which we'll talk about when we get there. But for now, you find the lift car station and Chris's unattended backpack.
We do find it, and while we're looking for him, we hear his phone vibrating in his backpack. She can either grab this, the phone, or zip it up in his bag. And to be honest, Rick, if I'm not mistaken, this is one of the earliest butterfly effect points.
Yeah, it's one of the earliest ones. It doesn't really amount to a whole lot. I snooped around just because I wanted to, in this playthrough, I wanted to cause chaos. So I snooped. You can see Ashley texting him, and he gets pissed that you're snooping, and then he calls you out for it later. And it causes your relationship meter to go down. That meter is pointless. I don't think that meter serves any purpose in this game. I don't think.
I have no idea, but I closed the bag, so more power to you for snooping.
Chris pulls you out back. He says he found something really cool, and it's a shooting range that is on the mountain for some reason. This is setting you up for more sort of quick time events because there are different times in this game where you're going to be throwing or shooting something. This is also a time where it introduces the idea of not doing anything at all because a little target pops up on a squirrel and it's the only target and it gives you a chance to shoot it. And all the while the timer is ticking like you're running out of time. And the game explicitly tells you sometimes not doing anything is the best choice. You don't want to shoot the squirrel. I don't know what kind of monster would do this.
I will refrain from using psychiatric language to describe that particular individual. But I did not shoot the squirrel either.
No, of course not. Even like a gamer that just wanted to see all of the choices, like diegetically, like I can't imagine being a 7. Well, I've known people who would shoot the squirrel, so I guess I can't say that. Don't shoot the squirrel. God damn it. Leave the squirrel alone.
Just don't do it. This is important, though, the not doing anything. It does come back.
Yeah. So Chris and Sam ride the cable car up, and Chris talks about how he met Josh. This is that dialogue about snapping the training bra, like when they were younger, that I think you were particularly distasteful with, Ben.
It's just like, come on. But yeah, you're right. Continue, please. I don't want a soapbox.
Well, he does the thing where he says, yeah, this happened, and now here we are today. Boom. Butterfly effect.
Butterfly effect.
And like, the first time I played this game, I had the thought like, man, this is really like when they say the name of the movie in the movie. But, later on, we get multiple instances of that.
It does. And I was like,
So we get that. But this is where we meet Jess.
Yeah, I guess we meet Jess. Jessica is seen waiting at the cable car station. She gets up, walks towards the cable car, gets startled after hearing Sam and Chris knocking on the door, and she does let them out because they're locked inside. Chris comments on how the cable car trip took so long, and then, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't he jokingly snatch a letter from her?
I think so. Yeah, I think... Wait, from Jess or from Sam?
From Jess, I believe.
Oh, yeah, I think he does if you snooped. And if you snooped, he makes a snide comment that, well, everybody's property is everybody's property, right?
That's right, yeah. Under that, in that scenario, yes, but I think he leaves her alone otherwise.
Ultimately, Jess says she's going to stay behind just in case other folks come, and Chris and Sam are going to go to the cabin. And now we're cutting to meet two more of these kooky teens, Matt and Emily. We talked about Emily a little bit. She is coded as the quote-unquote bitch. It's not a misogyny thing, although I can see an argument where that is a thing. She's just very cruel and mean and vindictive to literally everybody in the friend group, oftentimes unprovoked. It's very sad. Matt is coded as the jock. That's pretty much his personality. He's a nice guy, and he's a jock.
Yeah, he's very friendly. I didn't hate him, and Emily being mean to him kind of upset me. But then again, I thought, well, Emily didn't write her own lines.
Oh, yeah. No. What's the name of the actress? Nicole Bloom. Nicole Bloom does a great job of playing such a mean character. And I think she said in some interview, she was like, it was actually really fun. And it's like, well, you did a great job. So, yeah. So, as we're walking through as Mike... Jeez Louise, these kids all have such generic names.
I know.
As we're walking through as Matt and Emily, Mike jumps down from the ceiling of an overpass. No idea how they didn't see him, but he gives them a little spook, just a little more pranking. We're going to be pranking throughout this whole episode, so I hope you're ready for it. This is regular, Nickelodeon Double Dare levels of pranking or whatever. And Mike gets needlessly mean towards Emily. Just mean. They dated before. And as Matt, you can either be aggressive or ask him to chill out. This is another little, I don't think it's a butterfly effect, but it affects, dialogue later on. And you get another choice to do the same sort of thing, aggressive or chill, because Emily says, Matt, you go ahead on with your bags. I'm going to go with Mike off into private and find Sam. And since everybody's a teenager, Matt's like, oh, you're going to cheat on me. But that's what happens. Emily says, if you tell her, no, you shouldn't be alone, she eventually just persuades you anyway. So you take her bags and go. She goes off after Mike.
Yeah, this was kind of a weird scene, because eventually we do see, we've got Ashley now, right? And Ashley is looking through these binoculars, and we've got Matt, who is nearby, and she sees Mike and Emily hugging. Now, it's only, quote, it's only a hug, right? I think as Ashley, if I'm remembering correctly, I told Matt that he should take a look. I don't know if he looks anyway, because I didn't look into that. But I did. I was like, well, fine, I guess if you want to look through the binoculars. And then Matt got grumpy about Emily hugging Mike.
Yeah, no, Matt, well, first of all, he pops up and spooks Ashley. There's a little prank. But yeah, I also told him to look at the binoculars so he could see Mike and Emily hugging. He gets mad. This comes back later. It cuts back to Jess sitting at the cable car station, and we got another little prank. This time it's from Mike. He throws a snowball. This whole section is just them having a little snowball fight and being like horny high schoolers with bad flirting and all of that stuff. I think this is actually where it says sometimes not doing anything is the right choice, to throw a snowball at a bird, I think.
Yes. I think it happens with both the squirrel. Well, I don't know. No, because it does happen with the squirrel and the gun, but it does happen here too, or is this just an early example of a time that you're not supposed to?
I think it might be an early example. I've never shot the squirrel ever, so I think maybe if you shoot at it, you miss it, maybe? I don't know. But yeah, the moral of this game or one of the themes of the game is to be nice to animals anytime they're around because it will only do good for you later. That's good life advice too, generally.
It is. I agree.
Be nice to them animals. But this ends that scene, and it moves us to another Dr. Hill scene.
We do find ourselves back with Dr. Hill. He wants to understand. I think it's still the same office at this point, if I'm not mistaken. The office looks the same. And I say that as if it looks different later, and I won't say anything yet. But also, if you haven't played it yet, play the game. Stop listening, go play the game. He wants to understand from whence your anxieties come, men versus women, heights versus drowning, these sorts of things. And as Rick mentioned earlier, our answers determine the kinds of jump scares that we encounter. I really appreciated this, which is the previously on Until Dawn. That was so helpful, actually, while playing the game to remember things.
Oh, yeah. At the beginning of every play session, even if you're in the middle of a chapter, I believe, and at the beginning of every chapter, just in general, you get that little previously on montage. It's great. But that leads us into Chapter 2, Jealousy. 9 hours left until dawn. We open with Chris and Josh. They're walking up to the cabin, and now everybody's all together. Again, we get another little POV of somebody watching behind the trees. This strange man is going to come up more and more. But Josh, he makes it clear he doesn't really want to talk about last year. And your goal right now is to get into the lodge. The door is locked. So you go around, you go into a window. Chris manages to fit into a window. And Josh says, hey, find my deodorant spray. And we're going to use this as a flamethrower to sort of heat the lock up and get that lock open. Rami Malek does a random John Wayne impression and then leaves at this point, which made me actually laugh out loud.
I think I did too, actually.
Chris also has a line here as he's climbing in through the window. He says, I should have paid more attention in climbing class. And completely serious, Rami Malek's character says, do you mean Jim? And I don't think that was supposed to be funny, but I was laughing so hard.
It was very funny. This is its own tutorial, going through the actual lodge. I liked it because you kind of got a sense of the framework of the blueprint of the building that you'd be spending time in later in the game, which we'll get to. But eventually you do find your way to the bathroom where you find that canister of the spray deodorant. But as you open that cabinet, a wolverine of all creatures runs out, and I couldn't figure out what it was. I was like, this is too small to be a bear. It's too big to be a possum or a raccoon. What in the name of... And then it was like, oh, a wolverine, of course.
Yep. Then you can let Ashley and Sam in and the wolverine out, consequently. Matt can have a little challenge with Mike here if, you chose to show Matt the goggles before. Emily comes in and is just needlessly cruel to Jess, who is currently dating Mike. Just everything about this is uncomfortable and weird. So Josh says, hey, Mike, hey, Jess, why don't you go to our spare cabin? I cannot figure out any other reason for them to go there. I think he just sent them there to fuck and then come back. Very weird. I've never been in a friend group that did things like this.
Me neither, and that's okay. So yeah, you as Mike and Jess are on your way to find another cabin.
Oh, it's the generator. They're starting the generator to get heat.
But they're doing that on the way to the cabin, aren't they?
Oh yeah, actually maybe that's true.
But that bad boy with the machete is following them all the while.
Yes, yeah. You can see him through the windows a little bit sometimes, but he's always gone when you go back to check. The path to the cabin, of course, is blocked, so Jess suggests being adventurous and finding another way around. But as soon as she says that, she falls down off a short little drop into a mine. You get a little butterfly effect thing here, whether you help her immediately or not. That changes their disposition a little bit, but you're in the mines now. You can find some clues here about some you can find some clues here, including like how unstable this mine is, and you see some indigenous people's setups sort of decor. But you do make it out of this mine without incident. It's largely just a little detour.
It is good, though. It flavors the level well.
Oh, it's very good. I don't have an issue with any of the locations in this game. Sometimes the lounge is a bit of a pain if you're looking for all of the collectibles, just because you never know where you've been. But the mines, they're fun. And she's also, she's convinced that she sees somebody at the cabin. But of course, when Mike looks, no go.
I would like to add that the conversation between Mike and Jess the entire time is basically just euphemism and sexual material. It is just like, like, for example, like they'd fall into a mine, and this isn't an exact quote, but they'd be like, yeah, can't wait to explore your mine later. Like, that's kind of like what their banter is.
It's all that. It's like, I'm cold. Well, you're not going to be cold whenever we're rubbing our bodies together. It's like...
That's it.
And the thing is, Ben, and I'm going to admit this for everybody to hear, I made those kinds of horrible jokes when I was that age. So it's like, it's waking up this part in me that's like, man, I had no game, but I thought I did.
See, I wouldn't do those to people I was interested in. I would do those lines to my friend. And you were among the victims.
You were ahead of the time when it came to talking about kissing the homies.
What can I say? Cave explorer,
We're back as Sam now at the lodge.
I'm so sorry.
No, this is great. We're back to Sam at the lodge. She's finally getting that bath, except she's not. There's no hot water. So you go as Sam with Josh to find the boiler, while Chris and Ash, for whatever reason, go to find a Luigi board, because of course they do. Yes, I said Luigi board. We're gonna move past it. I see Ben's laughing, so that's good enough for me.
It's good. It was good.
I always think, is it Luigi board or Waluigi board? And then
it's Ouija, but it's Waluigi Ouija board.
You can find a baseball bat in the basement. And if you pick it up, you can put it down in a different place, which becomes important later, and they frame it as being important. You just don't know why yet. So you turn the boiler on. Josh makes a horrible, I'm just joshing you joke. But at this point, you hear some rhythmic pounding, and everybody's getting a little scared. And this is like one of the first major jump scares, first major scare, because you don't know who this person is. Somebody in a monk outfit, like a monk robe and a hockey mask, just jumps up and starts chasing you through the basement.
This was weird. I was like, this has to be a joke. This can't be a real thing. So you are running away up the stairs, and you're having to do some of these QTEs to make sure that you're going to make it up okay. But you don't know what's going to happen, right? But then the moment comes where it's revealed that this was Chris pranking you all along.
Not only is this just yet another one of their kooky pranks, they're pranking, but it's so bad. Like, it starts off so well, and then when he has him cornered, he literally goes, "Hey." And they're like, "What?" And he goes, "Hey." And then he takes the mask off and says, "You just got monked." What?
Incredible.
I wanted to just punch him. You fucking Chris. You just got monked? What are you doing, dude? Oh my God. Wait, we could do this with almost everything they do, man. This is going to be a 5-hour podcast of us just shitting on these kids.
It is, and it's tempting, but we care about you, the listener.
We're off to the third therapist session. All you need to know, in the meantime, Chris did get the Luigi board. Sam is off again for that elusive bath, and then boom, cuts to our third therapist session. This is where it gets interesting.
There is one other thing that happens in this chapter. Emily has a bag that's missing.
Oh, right.
And Matt and Emily, while this is happening, Matt and Emily do go back to the cable car station to look for her bag. That is something that happens, and it's important to note that they have left the lodge. Yeah, they there's, depending on what you chose to do as Matt with Mike and with Jess and Emily, that kind of, impacts their dialogue, but that's just about it. But you're absolutely right, Rick. This is where we meet with Dr. Alan Hill again, and it does get interesting.
Yeah, the room at this point is totally run down and dilapidated. The therapist, Dr. Hill, also puts a few things on the table that you mentioned that you were afraid of. So needles, cockroaches, things like that. He asks you if you value honesty and how you feel about fear. And I tried this scene a couple times. It seems like this is just a way for him to chide you about how you've been treating Emily, or how you feel about Emily, which is weird to me because the writer has explicitly made her to be the least likable, and they don't really continue with this thread. I just didn't get the point of this.
Yeah, the thing that really caught me the most about this scene was the dilapidated office. Like, what's happened to it? But I think that that's a theory for later, too.
Oh, for sure. We're in Chapter 3 now, titled Haunted, 8 Hours Until Dawn. You're back as Chris, Ashley, and Josh, and you're sitting down with the Ouija board. You're playing as Ashley. You can sort of choose how you want to approach this, whether you want to be flippant or serious. But the planchette begins to move, and it spells out that one of the sisters is speaking to you. At this point, I thought this was a joke, and again, this is a very cruel, cruel joke. Everybody is upset about this except for Chris, more or less. Josh freaks out. He says, "This is a shitty idea. I'm out of here," and he walks away. And that kind of cuts us to Mike, looking for Jess.
Because she is over the log during that snowball fight, correct? That's where we last left her? Yeah.
Yep.
For my sanity. Yeah, Ouija board didn't go so well. Mike rushes to find Jess through the woods. Guess what? Guess what she does? She pops out and scares him with a prank. Pranksters. And she, I believe she recorded it on her phone too. Mike can be either angry or flirtatious with this. That creature with the thermal vision is watching them from a distance. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit unsettling, a little bit.
And one of the cool things that they do that sort of reframes this upon a replay is it's unclear whether this thing that's viewing you or not is human because of the way that the movement is happening. You're also hearing screaming in the woods as you go. One other thing, at one point Mike gets spooked by something and he says the phrase, "That scared the blue out of my jeans." I love that. I'm going to start using that.
It's a good line. I've heard it before somewhere around Washington, PA.
It's earthy. It's of the people. At this point, you may have noticed that there are some deer around, just sort of jump scaring you here and there. But we hear some distressing noises in the distance, and we come upon a deer that is messed up. Not a not deer, for those of you that are familiar with cryptids. This is just a regular deer, but its throat has been slashed. I'm curious to know how you feel about this scene. This kind of shows me that Mike doesn't know anything about anything, because you can either comfort it as it's bleeding out or kill it, but you don't have a gun. What did you do in this scenario?
I comforted the deer. What did you do?
So I chose to try to put it out of its misery, even though I didn't have a gun. Do you know how he does this?
I don't.
You literally rip its fucking head off. You grab it by the head and just tear it off. This is so dumb. Nobody without a gun should be put... that if anything, that deer was suffering more as its head was slowly torn off by a human.
I don't like that at all.
It's so bizarre. There are so many things, like, I think these characters work well as cliches, but sometimes they do shit, and I'm just like, fucking kids. But that sentiment is short-lived, because this deer gets snatched up real fast and real aggressive by something unseen. You both freak out, and you're getting chased all the way back to the cabin, with more fast versus safe routes, QTEs, and all that stuff. But you do make it back to the cabin unharmed, and promptly begin to start being horny kids, even though you just saw a deer murdered and being attacked by who knows what.
Yeah, so you your characters, Mike and Jessica, basically conclude that it was a bear. That there was a bear chasing you, and they start to relax. Jessica insists that Mike sets up some romantic lighting and a fire before they, perform intercourse.
Yeah, let's be adults. Perform intercourse. Yeah, they're getting, like, they're super horned. They're, like, horned up. And Jess, like, she's just chiding Mike and saying, like, well, you have to get a fire. I am a lady. And she just sits there. She's like, get a fire going. Set the mood. God damn it. And Mike's not being much better, because he lights the fire and says shit like, looky, looky, who's gonna fire up some nookie?
Yep.
Which I have said more than once outside of the context of this game and outside of the context of performing intercourse. There's got to be a better way to say that. I feel like Tobias on Arrested Development.
Well, yes, but I'm afraid I prematurely shot my wad on what was supposed to be a dry run, if you will, so now I'm afraid I have something of a mess on my hands. No, I'm afraid I just blew myself.
Yeah, there's so much we could say about this scene, but go experience it for yourself.
And we mean the scene and firing up some nookie, by the way.
Yes, we do. As Mike, you kind of sit and talk with Jess. She's feeling insecure, and you tell her it's okay. And you try to, you're still trying to fire up the nookie, as it were. She'll start to get kind of cozy with him, but they're interrupted whenever they hear a window smashed by the bedroom. Mike finds Jess's phone playing music on the floor. So she was upset, thinking that it was a prank, and she goes outside and starts yelling at who she thinks are her friends. And she's like, we're going to have sex. And she says it very loudly. And when she closes the door and goes back inside, something breaks through the window, grabs her and pulls her through, and she screams a lot.
Yeah, violently, like inhumanely. So at this point, the game is sort of suggesting to you that whatever this heat vision thing is, it's not human, at least based on everything we've just seen. Also, anytime you're a teen in a horror movie and you're talking about sex, you're in trouble. Like, it's not going to end well for you. Come on, Jess. You do cut back to Ash and Chris. Ash is actually being pretty reasonable here, and they're wondering about whether they went too far with the whole seance thing. And Chris was just like, no, we didn't. So, of course. Jesus. As you walk through some rooms, there are some books flying off the shelf and things like that, and you find a secret button that leads to a secret passageway. And as we walk through it, our camera turns into POV of a security camera. And this kind of implies somebody wants to see us discover what we're about to. And this is where we see a picture of Hannah and Beth, and on the back it says in all caps, I will take them and bleed them like pigs and rip their soft white skin off. Fucking 16 years. 16 years I waited for pretty little Hannah and Beth.
This confused me.
What I like about this is we're getting a lot of information. We see something inhuman abduct Jess forcefully right after, massacring a bear. We get books flying off the shelf. And we also get a security camera. So we're getting, plus we've also seen the man with the machete. We're getting so many things, so many red herrings as to what's actually going on. Is it a monster? Is it something supernatural? Or is it this machete man setting up, booby traps for us? We don't know. And I think that's what this game does so well, is it doesn't show its full hand until it's go time. And I just love that.
And it feels as though that there are some conclusions for you to draw yourself. You know what I mean? Some things are left open enough, which I've really gotten to love from like the writing of J.J. Abrams. Watched Lost for the first time. Life-altering, first of all. But you start to appreciate some loose ends. And this game does a good job with it, but I don't want to give away too much.
I didn't know J.J. Abrams wrote Lost.
He was one of the three. I think he was the quote, biggest boy, end quote.
That is a glaring omission in my, like, watched TV history. Is that, like, does that hold up in 2022? Would it be a good watch?
120% yes.
Okay, great. Okay.
So you have not seen it?
I've never seen it. I, for a very long time, thought Lost was a reality TV show.
No, I did too. I thought it was like a survival reality TV show kind of thing, and I thought it was just all about like surviving, you know, like on an island in a tropical setting. Rick, I was wrong, and that's all I want to say.
Yeah. All right. Well, between you and Troy, I think Troy likes it too. You've convinced me. Just getting through here. Man, we've got a lot of story to push through. A door kind of opens as you're walking out, and we hear Josh screaming from far away. Of course, we chase that. Chris busts the door down, and from Chris's point of view, we see Ashley just on the ground unconscious, and this crazy masked man punches us. And before we cut to the next therapy session, we see this crazy masked man walking around the lodge, setting up balloons with arrows, candles, things like that.
So, in case you haven't gotten into the rhythm yet, between chapters are these therapy sessions. And guess what? Here's another one. This one, Rick, I don't even know how to describe the room at this point, but like, aren't there like meat hooks and other sorts of things just around the room?
Yeah, there's meat hooks. There's like scarecrow or zombie props to scare you. It just looks straight out of like an asylum.
If you're afraid of things, in psychology, we would call Dr. Hill's method flooding, where he literally throws everything you're afraid of, like, at you a little too much. Well, there are many ways, but yeah, you're basically just in this horrifying room now. It's gotten weird.
Yeah, this whole session is just him having you pick this or that between characters you either like the most or dislike the most. It seems like no matter what you do, he just yells at you.
The thing that I have to say I liked about this is that it felt like it was a good opening of a door for what's about to happen.
Yeah, oh yeah, I can get behind that. But as ever, this leads us into Chapter 4, titled Loyalty. We've got 7 hours until dawn. We're back as Mike. Mike's finally got a gun now from the cabin, and he's going to look for Jess. So we're chasing after whatever took her, and we do actually get glimpses of her in the distance through the scope of the gun, but she's always just out of reach, and she is being dragged away by something.
Mm-hmm. We don't know if it's that bear.
Yeah, it could be an anthropomorphic bear that just has a thirst for humans. Yogi Bear gone mad. Now, something we didn't mention up front that we should have is that everybody in this game can die in multiple ways. This scene is particularly interesting / frustrating because Jess can and will die in this scene, depending on how you play things out. You've got a lot of path choices, safe versus risky. I'm not sure if the choices matter, but if you don't get every QTE right, when you do catch up to Jess, she will have her jaw torn off, and she will be dead.
Whoa! I didn't know that.
I believe so. If you hit all the QTEs, you're fine. I used to think that you had to take the risky route and do all the QTEs. I'm not sure if that's true, but I know you have to get every QTE. But when you find her, she's like in the entrance to the mines on this old mechanical lift elevator. And if she's not dead, then she's in serious disarray. Like she's bloody and she's hurt. If she's alive, she weakly asks for help. But before you can, the lift crashes and she falls way down. Any reasonable person would assume that she's dead, which I believe Mike does.
Mike does. He leaves, yeah.
But spoiler alert, if she has her jaw, she's alive. I don't know how she survives that kind of a fall, but she does.
So Mike continues to try and pursue the quote stranger, this individual, and he is going through the mines, continuing to chase after him. He will find a lighter and a lantern, light the lantern, and make his way out of the mines into the sanatorium that we see in the distance. Favorite part of the whole game was the sanatorium stuff. Just want to say it again. While this is going on, we cut back to Chris waking up in the kitchen of the lodge, searching for Ashley, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Chris is looking for Ashley. There's some blood spatter just marked everywhere. Doors are open. Chris goes outside, and we find a cabin, and inside there's something rigged up, and we can hear Ash crying for help. And we can quickly see why. Her and Josh are tied up by the wrists against this backdrop of wood, and there is a saw blade on a track in front of them. And this is where we first talk to the quote-unquote psycho. That's how they're labeled, over some loudspeakers. And this is basically a Saw kind of a thing. Choose who you want to die. Now, there's more to this than meets the eye, is all we're going to say right now. But you have a choice to make. You can pick either Ashley or Josh, but spoiler alert, no matter who you pick, it defaults to Josh. And there is a reason why for this in the future. So you see it going towards and towards and towards, and I mean, he gets torn apart by this saw blade. Like straight up. He gets slaughtered.
Literally bisected.
Yeah, and it's violent.
It is violent, it is graphic, it is everything. What's weird is that right before you choose between the two of them, you have to choose between them verbally. So not only does the game embellishes this decision a little bit further, so like you'll apologize to one of them, and then you'll kill one of them. But the one that you kill is always the same.
Yeah, Chris gets tormented a lot in this game, thinking back.
He does, and I rather grew to like him more than other characters.
He's annoying, but he is very likable, for sure.
Oh yeah,
But regardless of what happens, Josh gets bisected, Chris gets Ashley down, and you run out of there, and you run into Emily and Matt, who I completely forgot about up until this point.
Yep.
They don't know anything about what's going on. Chris and Ashley are in hysterics, and actually Emily is the only one being reasonable, and she's saying, no, we need to get help. Like, we can't just run around, we need to get help. So that's great. And it takes us back to another therapy appointment.
Yes, it does. So we are with Dr. Alan Hill again, who seems to be a southern gentleman. He's tapping on a saw blade that's sticking out of a dummy's head. Asks you if things are going the way that you'd hope that they would. And then he starts kind of like ripping into you for, quote, playing this game. It's not good for you, not good for anyone. He asks if you even think he's real. I liked that, even though he is. But he does start to accuse you and start to kind of poke at your sense of reality.
And he follows up by saying, I don't even think you can tell the difference anymore.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I like this one.
Yeah. These are getting cool. It takes us to Chapter 5, Dread. 6 hours until dawn. We are at the sanatorium as Mike. I'm with you, Ben. I love this place. It's just a very dreadful atmosphere. It's worn down. It's big. Just really, really good. Lots of crevices. Tons of clues here regarding the mining incident. We also find a little machete that we could take. We need to get into the chapel to follow the man, but we need a key card to do so. There are a lot of clues here. As I said, they can give pretty huge hints as to what happened, so it's very behooving to look around here. In one area, there's like a mechanical hand sort of jerking back and forth attached to a table, and it's right in the center of the room, and that's on purpose because it is a trap. If you examine it, and that is the prompt, I should say, examine, you touch it, which is a little misleading. And if you do that, a bear trap claps onto Mike's hand. So you've got two options here. You can either use your machete to pry your way out of the trap, or you can cut off your fingers. The problem is, it's implied that there's a wolf watching nearby, and if you choose the route to save your fingers and just pry yourself away, it takes you 3 or 4 tries, and the machete breaks each time. What did you choose here?
I tried prying a couple times, and then it was like, well, might as well not be stuck.
Yeah, the game, like, if you try to unpry yourself, it takes, like, 4 times. The game strongly suggests you cut your fingers off. But you can pry them. You just don't have a machete anymore after that. And that is a butterfly effect.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't like this scene, and maybe it's because I was having finger empathy. As a musician, I DK.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, anytime I think about any bones in my body breaking, the fingers are the ones that cause me to cringe the hardest, particularly my pinkies. So, maybe.
Mike is exploring this area, all of these body drawers, etc. A wolf does scare Mike. Mike runs up this flight of stairs. He manages to get away, closes the door before the wolf is able to catch him. As he continues through the sanatorium, he meets the wolf again, finds a miner's jacket, puts it on. He finds a gun, and he might find a bone and befriend the wolf.
Yeah, when you first encounter the wolf, or maybe the second time, there's a QTE that comes up that suggests you can punch it. Don't punch the wolf. I mean, that's not a good idea ever, but don't punch the wolf, because you can do that in combination with the bone and make a friend in the future, which is important. But you keep making your way through the sanitarium, just blasting locks off at point-blank range with a literal revolver. No abandon for shrapnel or hearing loss. You are the Lone Ranger in this asylum. One causes some flammable oil to catch fire that causes a little bit of an explosion that knocks you back, and then we get a cut back to Matt and Emily.
That we do. So Matt and Emily, at this point, are trying to get themselves to that radio tower, if I'm not mistaken, the watchtower. I think it's technically a fire watchtower, but you can see, I believe this is through, I think they're being spied on all the while through the television, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's clear. It's shown that the psycho is watching via a hidden cam setup, and that he's able to remotely lock and unlock gates and doors.
Yes, he is. So they get to the cable car station. Matt finds an axe. Not a bad thing to have on hand. Emily wants Matt to bust down the door with the axe, but Matt will see a narrow window for Emily to go through. She does not want to do that. She cannot fit through that at all, according to her, and she will refuse.
After they realize they don't have the cable car keys, Emily suggests going back to the radio tower, which was Matt's idea in the first place that she berated him for suggesting. And she says, "I'm always right. That's why we need to go." They really go the extra mile to make her insufferable here. But they do go off that way. They make it to a cliff, though, for some reason, and they turn around, and this is where nature is a-comin', because I don't know the noun for this, but like a pack, a gang of elk shows up.
A herd?
Yeah, a herd, maybe? Herd, gang, posse of elk. They show up and they sort of corner you.
A congress, perhaps.
Yeah, that's fitting. But they have you cornered at this cliff. And, of course, it cuts. We cut back to Sam. and she is finally in that hot and steamy bath. She is listening to the Bach cello suites and really jamming out here.
Yeah, she is unaware that the psycho is near.
Not just near, in the bathroom.
Yeah, that's true. Really, there's so many things I want to say now that I can't say now. You know what I mean? After playing through the game and watching playthroughs, etc. Yeah. So we're back at Sam, as you said, listening to the Bach cello suites. That's pretty nice. Her clothes are gone. The psycho took her clothes. She is walking around the house in a towel. Those balloons and candles, she follows them throughout the entire lodge. And then he does this weird countdown thing and shows up with a needle, with a syringe.
Well, before he does that, she finds it on a projector. And that's where the countdown comes from, because that's where the balloons were pointing her to, this room. And it also, that projector with the countdown shows her footage of her in the tub.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then he does come out with the syringe. So this is our first true, encounter with him. You need to make a series of correct decisions here, between running, hiding, and etc., because he can catch you and he can drug you. That baseball bat that we mentioned before, if you observe that and put it down, you can use it to hit him. I don't know where you got to here. I got to the very bottom lower area that's downtrodden, and then he got me and drugged me.
I think I made it away. I think I did make it, if I'm remembering correctly. I know
nice.
that I know I wasn't drugged.
Yeah, I got caught, and he needled me. Not great.
Yeah, it's the old hotel. Made it into the elevator shaft.
Yeah. I think this is where we find out that there's a hotel attached to the lodge. But
insane.
I really like this whole section. This is really the anxiety is high. You're being chased through narrow passageways. I really liked it. I thought it was great.
It was well done, and they had done enough work throughout this whole game that didn't feel too cliche at that point. You know what I mean? And they make you do enough button pushing and decision making that it becomes your own story.
For sure. This cuts to another therapy session, but the interior is back to normal for the most part. It's Hill just sort of asking you if everything's been worth it, etc. And then the psycho appears in the office, and we get a cut to black. So now we really don't know what's going on.
I did think that Dr. Hill was the bad guy for a fleeting moment.
It's not an unfounded theory. I think a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah, it was good. But this does lead us into Chapter 6, entitled Psychosis or Vengeance, 5 hours until dawn.
Yeah, this picks us up with Matt and Emily at the cliffside. And
my favorite couple.
Do you want to know what the key to getting through the herd is? I'll give you 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count.
Okay.
All you got to do is not attack him with an axe.
Yep, which it gives you the option to do.
Yeah, it gives you an option to attack him, and if you do, you get thrown right off the cliff. So all you need to do is just walk past and not freak out. That'll get you to the radio tower. The power is out, so you have to turn on the fuse box. You can also find a flare gun, as Emily, by the way. You can choose to keep it or give it to Matt, and turns out this is actually important. What did you do?
Kept it.
I kept it as Emily as well. Now, the next question, did you shoot it?
No.
You saved it?
Mm-hmm.
That's the pro move. I saved it too.
It saved me, but we'll get to that later.
I'm glad that you got that scene. I really liked that scene. Yes,
me too.
This will literally save your life. You are able to contact a ranger once the power's on. He repeatedly is asking you to speak slower, but Emily is just freaking out. I suppose understandably so. But man, it's like they're not communicating. But eventually he says, look, we can't send out helicopters to rescue you until the storm subsides, which could be until dawn.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Somebody outside, and it's unclear who does this, cuts the support cables to the tower, and it collapses. I made the note here that this is probably the most deranged thing that is done to these teens if it's who we realize the psycho to be later.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Like, that goes beyond pranking. And
It's not a prank anymore. It's a crime.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think it's the other person either. I don't think that would have been him. So that leaves only one entity, but we can maybe talk about that later. But this causes the whole tower to collapse. And it's Matt and Emily trying to sort of navigate this collapsing tower. There's some really bad dialogue here where Emily is literally hanging on for her life, and Matt can bring up suspicions about Mike if you saw them hugging. Like, as she's hanging about to die, you can accuse her of cheating on you.
Not great timing, Matt.
No, this is just horrible.
Did not choose that text.
They're both so awful. In my playthrough, Matt ended up jumping to safety as the tower fell, which Emily does not let him forget for the rest of the time. But as far as we know right now, Emily's dead.
Yeah, I did think that. So, at this point, under the ground, so is it revealed that we're in the mines yet? Is that a thing? Or does that come slightly
No,
later?
we're back at the lodge with Ash and Chris looking for Sam.
Yes, Ashley and Chris have returned to the lodge looking for Sam. Chris, Ashley, they head to the basement, and she thanks Chris for saving her from the saw, and she keeps bringing it up, and Chris is like, please stop. Please don't talk about this. She's like, he was your best friend, and you chose... Please stop. Like they've been through this extreme trauma. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, I don't think she does that if you chose her, even though Josh is the one that gets got. But that's something that we'll talk about later too, because there's another choice coming up. There's a ghost of a girl that walks past, and Ashley sees it like twice, and both times Chris takes like a comically long time to turn, so he misses it. He does eventually see it, and he does the whole like, I don't know, what was that? I don't know what I saw. Like a Scooby-Doo thing. Astute players may have found evidence at this point of Josh's dad having a bunch of film grade horror things, like trophies for horror film, props, things like that. This is not a coincidence.
No, it is not. Yeah. They do argue, but then eventually Chris is like, yeah, I guess I did see it, as you just said, and that was very funny. Yeah, there's a dollhouse. It's very creepy. And you know what? I agree. It is well done. You have to find a key in order to open this thing. Correct? There's a big old key that you find on the wall.
Yeah. And the ghost, quote unquote, points you to it. So,
Ghost.
Yeah, it's clear that somebody wants you to see this. It's a dollhouse that's set up of the scene of everybody terrorizing Hannah. And we also get to read Hannah's diary. Really driving the knife into the chest that we did a shitty thing. As it should, because they did.
Yeah, no, it's true. In the next area, you see a catalog for these industrial light bulbs, which I love. Chris, he's like, yeah, well, they're really big, expensive light bulbs. Like that, it's very like, okay, who gives a shit? It's kind of like, yeah, I need to go get a P-trap from the hardware store. Like it's
yeah, it's just a lot of stuff that seems like this is all intentionally set up. But Ashley also grabs a giant pair of scissors, which is important
for giant pieces of paper.
Yeah, exactly. And there's lots of newspapers there. You got to cut them up somehow.
Yes, there are. Fake newspaper.
Yes. Good call. It is fake newspaper. That'll come into play pretty soon. You're going into these new areas of the hotel/lodge, and there's one area with just chains, hooks, blood, and a strung-up, gutted pig. It's very hostile/Saw scenery here. And as you're going through, Chris comes across a heavy door, but Ash thinks that she sees Sam. It's very obviously not Sam. It's very clearly the psycho, but she thinks she sees it. Ash and Chris can get separated here, with Ashley almost getting caught, but they can meet up shortly afterwards. And they find this, like, Well, in my playthrough, it was a scarecrow, but it might be a zombie or something dressed in Sam's clothes.
A dummy of like a clown, yeah.
Oh, a clown. Oh, yeah.
Might have been a zombie clown thing. I don't know.
So you're like, well, what is he doing with Sam if Sam's clothes are here? Well, you find Sam, at least in my playthrough, still alive but knocked out on a chair. And as you're sort of talking it over, the psycho knocks Chris out. And here, if you did pick up those scissors, as Ashley, you can stab the psycho, who goes into this like brief bit of panic where he's like not sure what to do. And then he just like clocks Ashley in the face and just knocks her out, saying something along the terms of live and learn.
Yes, the psycho does say that. So they begin to regain consciousness and find themselves tied up in chairs. This is very Jigsaw, isn't it? Yeah. Ashley's looking around and tells Chris, guess what? We're going to die. Because that seems to be the theme of the evening, is we're going to die. You kind of get this moment where like they start to admit that they have like feelings for each other because they think that they're going to die. And it's kind of strangely sweet, kind of dark, but soon the saw begins to descend from the ceiling, and the psycho's voice comes in saying that Chris will have to either choose to kill himself or Ashley with the gun in front of him on the table. So while they're both tied, Chris has the agency to pick up a handgun on the table. I was kind of perplexed by this. I was kind of surprised.
At this point, I was wondering why Chris is getting picked on so much, which isn't. I mean, there's not a reason for it really. But well, I guess there kind of is actually. But you have to choose to either shoot yourself or shoot Ashley. This is not like before. This one has some serious consequences. You could also choose not to shoot either of you. In this playthrough, I chose to shoot myself, just because I knew what was coming up. Ashley is begging you to shoot her. She's like, look, you chose Josh over me last time. Like, let me make this choice for you. Which, if you do that, things don't go very well. But regardless of what you do, you get a shot, you hear him make the shot, and the screen cuts to black.
The screen does cut to black, and then I believe there is just a passing. Dr. Hill is shown talking to the psycho, though I don't believe that we actually do any interacting in this one, do we?
I didn't write that down. If it happens, I can't speak to it because I honestly don't remember that.
No, I don't think anything actually happens with them at that point.
What does happen is we move into Chapter 7, titled Violence. This is 4 hours until dawn. We pick up as Sam here in the Washington Lodge basement. Mike comes by. You're able to get her untied. They talk about Josh. Yeah, they talk about Josh and Jess. Well, that's harder to say than it should be. Josh and Jess. They take the death of their friends remarkably well. They're just kind of reminiscing over what happened, but they hear Chris screaming and they stumble across the last scene. You know, Chris tries to shoot the psycho who is there at this point, who is berating him because he's like, they're only blanks. Don't you know how blanks work? That's not how blanks work, by the way. Nobody should be shooting anybody with blanks. People die from that shit.
Recently.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No kidding. Yeah, that was a big immersion breaker for me. Like, I'm not a big immersion guy, but like, that's just not how blanks work. I'm sorry. But we've got a big reveal here. We do.
The psycho takes off their mask, and it's Josh, which I did think at one point, actually, that it could have been him.
It made all the sense in the world to me, but I did not see this coming. Well, I had a hunch whenever I saw the horror grade film stuff. I thought Josh was involved, but it wasn't something that I actively picked out.
You mentioned something, Rick. You said that she'll be untied by Mike. Since I was not captured, she escaped through an air vent into the workshop and began to explore the workshop, finding different clues that could reveal his identity. Just saying.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
She does encounter Mike through a grate in the wall, though.
I think that's also an area where I missed out on several, or at least one or two totems on this playthrough, because I had quite a few missing. But we don't get a lot of revelry, or we don't get a lot of time to relish in this scene because we cut to Emily, who's hanging upside down and somehow not dead. She reorients herself and she makes some comment about her outfit being ruined, which is really stupid. But as she's walking,
$300 shirt, yeah,
it's just really. Yeah, but as you're walking through these mines, you're hearing screeches and seeing shooting flames. So once again, like, we know the psycho is Josh. Now we're thinking, well, what the hell is going on down here? There were ghosts a few minutes ago. Books are flying off the shelves. The Ouija board. We don't know what's going on. But deeper into the mines, Emily comes across some skeletal remains, some bones. If you're keeping up with collectibles, you might have a hunch as to what happened at this point, which we might explain a little bit later in detail. But you are able to flip the switch for an elevator to get out, because that's the only way you're getting out. But importantly, down here, we can find some of Hannah's remains. We find her glasses, some marks on the walls indicating time passed, Hannah's locket, and a makeshift cross for Beth. Also, Beth's head and jacket, but no other remains.
Classic.
This is grisly. Like, it was at this point, like now that we know that Josh isn't dead, and assuming nobody else has died, this is the first point where I was like, oh, this is like something is going on. This is grisly.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's shortly after this that we come face to face with this other stranger that we've kind of seen from afar, who's wearing this like kind of almost like a welding mask kind of thing, but they have a flamethrower and they are pursuing us. It's not clear whether this individual means us any harm or not. I eventually did get caught.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I got caught as well. We don't get much resolution on this for a minute. He's not dangerous, but we cut back to the crew with that wacky Josh. This is the point where, like, Rami Malek had been a good actor up until this point, but at this point where Josh's mental state starts to rapidly decline, like, his performance goes to another level. He gets, like, there are points where he just gets unsettling in his acting. It's very good.
It was the only thing that really, in this, I would claim this as a shortcoming, but like, because it was CGI, I had a harder time feeling it. Like, if I would have seen like him flesh and bone, it would have been like, wow, this is pretty spooky. Still, it was a very convincing and good portrayal by Rami Malek, so bonus points.
Yeah, best they could do with the medium they chose. But Josh is crazed. He is equal parts antagonizing them for what they did last year, while also being gleeful about everything that he was able to pull off and like the shit that he did to them. We get some flashbacks showing specifically how he did some of his tricks. And again, like, his mental state is declining. He's not okay. Mike is pissed off, understandably. And he says, Jessica is dead because of you. And this is the first time that Josh is like lost for words. He's like, what do you mean? What do you mean dead? And Mike just knocks him the fuck out with the what do you call it? The handle of the pistol.
Yes. Yeah, and he's really high on his horse here. Josh is very much like, you guys deserve this. And it was like, wow, you know what? Maybe a little bit.
They deserved reprimanding, and they deserved they deserved to feel bad. Like the doll, I didn't feel bad about them finding the dollhouse scene because or Hannah's diary, because like they deserve that. They don't deserve to be put through all of these traumatic and dangerous experiences. That's a little too far.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, Josh's family decreased by 2 people, so like insurmountable loss, but Mike and Chris do take Josh to this like kind of shed barn thing that's outside. They take him. I guess it is at gunpoint, technically, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And he is continuing to unravel. Josh is, that is, and he started to call himself a healer. and made fun of them and their romantic lives because, he's had eyes on them. He's been watching them through the cameras and everything else, as it was revealed to us. They did tie him to a post. Yeah, sorry, I've got a lot of the lines that he was talking about, like, a sleepover means we need some pizza. Like, all of those, like, lines he was saying during the scene.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like, whoa, he's really going for this.
He's saying some real silliness that comes off as very disturbing.
Yeah. Was it revealed in an earlier scene that there were text messages between Josh and a certain someone about him taking his medication again? That does happen. In my story, because Sam escaped, she found a cell phone. It was Josh's cell phone, and it was a conversation between Josh and Alan Hill. And Alan Hill was checking in on him, and Josh was starting to, like, evade and started to kind of, like, get angry. And Dr. Hill was like, "You can't quit your medication cold turkey, Josh." So that was its own revelation.
Yeah, that's part of what's great about the collectathon aspect of this game is it supplements the story, but not engaging with it won't necessarily make the story any less impactful. It just kind of helps guide us along and figure out everything that's happening as it's happening, which I think is great. Yeah, Josh is in dire straits when it comes to his mental health at the moment, but he's tied up. As he's breaking down, Chris decides to go back to the lodge. And that gets us to Chapter 8, Revelation. 3 hours left and 3 chapters to go. We are with Emily. The stranger has caught us, and he's, saying, be quiet, which she does not. And in the background, this is the first time we get a good glimpse of some creature that's landing from the ceiling. There have been instances where you could catch a glimpse of this in the far background, but this is the first time we could see it. The stranger pushes us as Emily down further into the mines, gives us something and tells us to use them, and tells us to just get the hell out of there. And shortly after we find why, we get our introduction to this particular monster via a chase scene. I love the monster design on these things.
I'm not a fan of monsters in horror games very often. This one wasn't horrible. This one was spooky, kind of animatronic insect-like movement.
I'm generally not a monster guy either. I liked it here because there were so many red herrings that were being set up before this was revealed. These monsters basically look human, but with elongated limbs, long claws, no lips, but long teeth, and just like milky dead eyes and a tough armor-like skin. And they move incredibly fast and are incredibly strong. And they're chasing you, and there are a couple of ways you can die here, and you can also get bit here too. But the pro strat here that Ben and I did is if you have the flare gun as you're running away, you can use that as defense and get out without getting bit and without dying too.
It's true. And thank goodness for that flare gun. Emily does make her way back to the lodge, and she reunites with the majority at this point of everyone. Did we ever say what happened to Matt?
At this point, I hadn't seen Matt since last we saw him.
Matt was killed, but in mine.
Oh, how did Matt die for you?
He was, kind of trying to escape to safety, but like he was caught by someone who I don't know, and had his jaw pushed through a meat hook.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, that is one way. He didn't die in mine. He didn't get the meat hook treatment, but we learn who or what that was.
Yes. Yeah, I guess we kind of do. Emily gets into the lodge and is with pretty much everyone. Mike also makes it back. There's a knocking at the door, and Chris and Mike together are kind of like, all right, you want to open the door? You want me to hold the gun? You want me to do the... It's the, quote, stranger. It's the man from the mines who had the flamethrower, who has some interesting information.
Yeah, he instantly takes control of the situation. He's just like, all right, let me say what I gotta say. I came up here for this. It's also clear that he's the voice in the Events of the Past video, if you've been engaging with that. And he tells you what's really going on. They're like, you can't be up on this mountain. It doesn't belong to you. And he's like, well, you're right, but it don't belong to the Washingtons neither. It belongs to the Wendigo. Those were the creatures that we've been seeing. And if you're familiar with cryptids or the lore of indigenous people, this is a very scary monster that is in their lore. Basically, anybody who resorts to cannibalism in the mountains releases the curse of the Wendigo and begins to transform. Now, if you've been keeping up with the collectibles for the miners, you'll have learned that they got trapped in the mine, and resorted to cannibalism. And if you've really been keeping track with the collectibles, you even learn that the doctors saw the miners transforming, saw them attacking other patients and things like that. So immediately, Chris is worried about Josh. Chris is a good friend at heart.
He is. He really is. So the stranger agrees to go with Chris to get Josh from the barn, because the stranger's like, well, he's probably already dead, but we can go do it. So they're walking through the snow, and Chris is told that if they don't move, they'll be okay from the Wendigo, but you don't really want to try that out, is what the stranger implies. They get to the barn, and guess what? Josh is gone. And on their way back to the lodge, a Wendigo, unfortunately, has its way with the stranger.
Yeah, you're learning all about how terrifying these things are on the way down. Shotguns don't kill them. It only kind of pushes them back. Fire does kill them, but you don't want to do that because that releases their spirit and can further create more. And yeah, the Wendigo gets the stranger. It comes down, it slices his head plumb off.
I was pissed. I liked him a lot.
He was a good guy, and he dedicated his life to keeping these creatures contained, but they got him. Head plumb off. So you're Chris, you're trying to get back there. Chris can die two ways here. On my playthrough, I was just experimenting. I let him die by the Wendigo's hand. They tear his head clean off. Chris can also die another way, which a lot of the fans are very divisive about. Now, back in the gun scene where you chose between Chris and Ashley, if you chose to shoot Ashley with the blanks that quote-unquote don't do anything, when Chris is running back up to the lodge here, and he's saying, let me in, Ashley will have a flashback to that and not let Chris in. And all of the Wendigos come up and get a hold of him, and they take him away and kill him. And then Mike comes up, and he's like, what the hell? Why didn't you let him in? And she just doesn't know what to say. A lot of people don't like that.
I mean, I get it, but really? Really? On a night like this? But at the same time, her mortality was played with. But I'd be more pissed at Josh than I would at Chris.
No, you're right. It's a difficult situation. I mean, and it's hard to imagine how one would react outside of that situation. I think it makes sense. I could see why she wouldn't. I think it's weird that afterwards she feels immediate. Well, no, actually, I don't think that's weird. Afterwards, she immediately is like, what did I do? What have I done? I don't know how I sit with this. I kind of go back and forth. It didn't happen on my playthrough, but yeah, I kind of go back and forth on this.
My Chris made it.
If he dies, the thing tosses his head back onto the lodge, right in front of everybody, and nobody likes that. Everybody's upset. Mike, Ash, Emily, and Sam all reconvene. Matt is still nowhere to be found, nor is Jess. They recount their adventures through the mines and the sanatorium. Sam suggests staying and waiting until dawn. Hey.
Oh.
Which is the obvious right thing to do. But Mike goes out to look for Josh to get the key to the cable car. There's actually a really cool scene here. In the basement, as Ashley, we find the stranger's notebook and read it. There's tons of info about the Wendigo and how the Cree believed that the mountain and everything on it was sacred. The miners showed up and started mining the mountain, which hurt the mountain and caused the mountain to release the Wendigo spirit. It also mentions, he was containing the Wendigo and etc., etc. If Emily was bitten, the group thinks that she's going to turn into a Wendigo, and they ask Mike to shoot her. Did you encounter this?
I did not actually. It was weird. They were like, no, someone got bit. Oh, no. But like, I don't think anyone was asked to shoot anyone, strangely.
It's only if Emily got bit.
She had a wound, but I don't know if she was bit in mine.
You can choose whether or not to shoot Emily. And as Mike, you can shoot Emily right in the eye. But maybe it is just if she's wounded, because shortly afterwards we find in the Stranger's Notebook that getting scratched by the Wendigo doesn't turn you, or getting bitten doesn't turn you. It's only if you consume human flesh. That's how you turn into the Wendigo. So being bitten or hurt by the Wendigo is not going to turn you. If you have shot Emily, you can reveal this information, which doesn't help anybody. But that's optional. And after all of that, we cut to one of the last Dr. Hill scenes where he's talking directly to Josh. He's berating him for his choices, for what he's done, telling him that this game's gone all wrong and that he's all alone.
It's pretty brutal.
It is tough.
Dr. Hill, talk about the therapist holding someone accountable.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. This chapter 9, is one of two names, Despair or Karma. 2 hours until dawn. You're Mike again in the sanatorium again. The others, who's left at this point, right? We've got Ashley, Chris, Emily, and Sam are all making their way to the sanatorium, if I'm not mistaken. That is, if Chris survived. If he didn't, and Sam is searching for Mike. Sorry. Jess makes her first physical appearance since chapter 4. She kind of wakes up from being unconscious, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. You're a thing, and you're alive? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The summary of this section with Mike is that you're going through the sanatorium. You're trying to look for Josh. You're encountering a lot of the Wendigo that the stranger has chained up really, and some that aren't chained up. And you've got to fight them. You've got to shoot them with a shotgun. I purposely failed literally every single QTE here, and I did not die. So you can't die as Mike here. But if you befriended the Dogie, the wolf will come back and he'll kind of help you out. If you fail a QTE, the wolf jumps in to save you, and a Wendigo kills the wolf instead. So the wolfie can die. Maybe if you didn't befriend the wolf, that's how you can die. But if you have the wolf and fail everything, you still don't die. But the Dogie, R.I.P. And that's the gist of this whole scenario. And you mentioned the Jess bit, but this cuts us back to Ash, Emily, and Sam, assuming that they're all alive.
Yeah. They open up a manhole because they're trying to figure out their way through because Mike shut a door behind him and they can't get through it. So they're going through this manhole. This is where you hear Jessica yelling for help off the path. I did not go to her. Cool. I did not go to her. I don't know if you did.
Well, I didn't in this playthrough, but I know what happens. If you are reading The Stranger's Notebook, what you learn is that the Wendigo mimic their prey so they can eat. And the Wendigo are able to mimic human voice. And so if you hear Jessica yelling, and you go investigate, a Wendigo opens this trap door, gets Ashley, rips her head off, and I think that Wendigo can get somebody else too. I'm not certain because I didn't do that.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
It's brutal though. It's pretty cool. I like that a lot, that the Wendigo can mimic human voice.
Oh, it's a great. See, there are some things where I'm like, oh, okay, you're just a stereotypical like creature, but the mimicry, I dig that. That was creative.
Well, that's typical of skinwalkers, but I don't think that's the same thing as a Wendigo.
No, I don't believe so.
This cuts back to Sam. She's scaling the cliff. She's able to rock climb, so she just goes without the rest of the group. And she's able to make her way to the sanatorium just in time to save Mike from a Wendigo, which again, I purposefully failed this, and it did not matter. So as you're going with Mike and Sam, Mike shoots some oil barrels, lights something on fire, and just blows the hell out of the whole area they're in, blows them out of the front, boy, like Bad Boys 2 style, like action movie, like fucking Terminator. Yeah, you just get blown out. And that's the end of that chapter.
Of the sanatorium, right?
Of the sanatorium, yeah. And it brings us to our last chapter, chapter 10.
Wow, yeah, I guess it really does bring us ahead, doesn't it?
Repentance, 1 hour until dawn. The opening of this chapter is incredible.
Lay it on us.
Do you want to take it?
All you. I liked it so much, I'd rather hear you say it.
So it's with Hill and Josh is sort of sobbing into his hands. Hill says, Josh is a spoiled brat. You won't be alone for long. And, it's dark, and what happens here is the corpses of Hannah and Beth come out, and they just keep asking, like, why have you forsaken us? They're singing Frere Jacques to him, which is super creepy. The walls sort of morph into this Lynchian pus and moving skin, and you see this knife cutting a hole, and a giant hog head just pushes through, because that's what, Josh killed so many pigs for these stunts. If we didn't reveal it, that's how Josh made a fake body stuffed with pig intestines. That's how that whole quote-unquote prank played out. Josh punches the pig head, and Hannah and Beth emerge again from there, and one of them tears their own face off. It's just this really surreal, just psychosis-induced scene that, if there was any doubt that Josh wasn't in the grips of psychosis before, this seals the deal. Like, Josh is not in touch with reality at this point, and this becomes more apparent as we have to guide him and walk with him.
It does cut back to Mike and Sam together exploring the mines. In order to get where they need to go, they have to go through ice-cold water, which this kind of pissed me off because I was like, you should have hypothermia by now, but I digress. They wade through, they make it to the other side. Yeah, we find Hannah's journal. If Sam wades in the right direction in the water, finds Hannah's journal and learns the truth about what happened to the twins.
I was going to ask if you found this because this is missable. Do you want to tell what happens?
One of them lived. One of them survived the fall and resorted to eating the other. Hannah ate her sister Beth.
And it's really sad because in the journal, like, she's writing about this. She's like, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to die. And she's like writing about how much she regrets it. And as it goes on, her writing becomes more scribbled and frantic, and she's saying how strong she feels. And eventually it just devolves into scribbles. This is basically confirming that Hannah turned into a Wendigo.
And she did.
Oh, and this becomes important because Sam and Mike find Josh mid-breakdown from before. Sam gets the cable car from the entire cable car, the key to the cable car from him, and Mike just like pats him on the back and he's like, all right, let's go, you fucked up son of a bitch. And I was like, that made me chuckle a little bit, just because it's whatever. As you're walking out, you can come through a cave that has the bodies hung up of everybody that's died. For me, it was just the stranger, but it can be everybody. Josh will freak out, whether, depending on who is there, and you have to wade through more water. Trouble is, this time, a Wendigo comes in. Now, if you didn't find Hannah's diary, then the Wendigo just crushes Josh's head, and Mike is still enough that it doesn't get to him. If you did find Hannah's diary, what actually happens is the Wendigo lifts Josh up. Josh notices a tattoo of a butterfly on the Wendigo's shoulder and out loud says, Hannah. The Wendigo recognizes him and just takes him away. Fucking awesome.
It was a good scene.
And it's like, it is technically missable, but it's a very obvious find because it's just like one of two paths you can take. You can almost see it. But man, like, oh, it's so impactful. I really liked it.
Yeah. See, and again, Matt was dead for me.
So this was just Jess coming up for you?
Yes, that is correct. It was just all by herself. Yeah. Let me catch myself up here.
It's kind of underwhelming. Like, even if you have both of them alive, like I did, they basically just sort of recount what they've been through, and they walk to get out of the mine. They can, like, you have to hide from a Wendigo twice here. If you choose to run, the Wendigo catches up to Jess and kills her. If you hide and get caught, the Wendigo kills both of you. On my session, I escaped from both, and that's kind of the last you see of them until the post-credits.
Yeah, I don't know why. My brain is having a complete blank moment on what happened to Jessica. I believe she made it out. I just don't remember where she went to from here.
Chances are, if she didn't die in the mine shaft, like in the opening chase with Mike, she's going to be okay unless you screw up here, which I think is easier to get through. But this takes us back to the lodge with Sam and Mike. All of the survivors run in, and they're being chased by Wendigo. This whole section is super cool because we find out that the Wendigo are not afraid to fight each other. And oh boy, do they.
They do. It's pretty badass, actually. And while fighting each other, one of the Wendigo throws another Wendigo into the gas fireplace, and it breaks a pipe loose that is letting natural gas into the room. One thing that the stranger taught us through his flamethrower gospel is that the Wendigo have a certain disdain for fire.
That's right.
And
he gets
it's lethal.
the idea. Yes, he gets the idea to use that gas leak to their advantage. He's going to blow up the lodge. Trouble is, they've got to be very careful because this whole time as you're walking around, you have so many don't move prompts as Wendigo are in your face, like screaming and howling in your face at you. It's very, very cool. On my playthrough, I just let Sam die, just to see what would happen. She dies, which sucks, but everybody can die here, depending on how things play out. But what Mike does is he crushes a light bulb and goes to a light switch and flicks it as they're running out. Again, everybody can survive. If you manage to pass all the QTEs and stuff, everybody can die. It really just depends on how things play out for you, but you flick the switch, the house goes kaboom, kills all the Wendigo. You see the Wendigo spirit, the main spirit, Makapitu, kind of fly out, and that's when the helicopters come. They will pick up any remaining survivors, if applicable, and we get the end, along with that stupid "Oh Death" song.
Now, if the game was more like death heavy, I'd be like, yeah, okay. But it's not very just Memento Mori. It's not like I don't want to be that guy, but like Markiplier and Crank Gameplays like Unus Annus did more for me. When they were like Memento Mori, I was like, yeah, you're right. You will get rid of this YouTube channel, and one day it will be gone. But this one, just like Oh Death, I was like, I don't even know if that's the right song for this. Digressing. Whoever survives is interviewed by the police, and those will play with the end credits.
It's a really nice touch. It's very cool.
Yeah.
They'll kind of talk about everything that happened in your specific playthrough, so this is going to be different for everybody. I don't actually know the number of combinations. It's not important. But we do get a quick epilogue of explorers in the mine. It's confirmed that Josh resorted to cannibalism and turned into a Wendigo. If you found Hannah's diary, and Hannah recognized Josh, but that's it. That's the credits on Until Dawn. The kids made it out, but maybe they didn't. And the Wendigo is contained.
It's worth mentioning that as you're laying in the snow and the helicopter is there, the sun is rising. It is dawn.
We made it. Or maybe we didn't.
If I can be honest about this game too, if you've just listened to us talk about it and you haven't played it, and you're sitting there going, well, is it worth playing? It's worth watching a playthrough. It really is. You could watch it in like 6 easy segments. You could watch it in, 10 very easy segments. There are a lot of ways to enjoy this game. It plays well as a movie because it kind of has the, it's not the illusion of choice. Your choices matter, but it still has, the bowling bumpers on, as it were. It's well crafted. It's not lacking. You just if you find a moment in the beginning where you find it stale, it really does pick up in a way that was shocking. That is my disclaimer.
Yeah, it's not long. You can do a playthrough first time in 10 to 12 hours. It's really not long. Very manageable. Keeps you up to date on the story and the files. So, yeah, I mean, it's even satisfying if you know the twists, I think. Better if you don't, but even so if you do. I definitely recommend it. I'm with you.
Well, now what?
Well, now that's it, buddy. Now it's time to wrap it up.
Okay, goodbye.
On this one, goodbye. Yeah, get out of this fucking lodge while we can, lest we succumb to the Wendigo. I did the call to intro. I did the call to action up front with the ratings and reviews, where you can find us on social media and all that. So we don't need to repeat that again. You know, if you know, you know.
I do.
I think that's all for us today until we come back next time with Kingdom Hearts.
Good lord.
Yeah, talk about a tonal shift. Well, as ever, congrats on surviving until dawn. My name is Rick Firestone.
My name is Ben Bugale.
Thanks for listening. We're signing off now.